But Matt, with you being out at the games, tell me a story about one of the players that you've watched, maybe a game, a situation, or just talk about one of the players from the 2021 class that you've watched play that you were excited about.
Oh, there's a few I can get to here. I'm going to start with James Williams. I haven't been out at any Palmetto games this year because they just recently started. So of the 5 stars, James is the one that I've been able to see so far this season. And I was out. It was his first game of the year. It was American Heritage at Chaminade. And, I mean, I thought I was looking at the number one player in the country. I really did. Just the way that his presence on the field, just from the safety position and coming down into the box a lot of times, he totally controlled the game. They had nothing going on offense. He lived in the backfield. Chaminade is not a very good passing team, and he just shut down Thaddeus Franklin, running sideline to sideline, hitting people, making plays in the backfield. I think Chaminade scored 3 points in that game, and it was a field goal off of a turnover. It was one of the most single dominant performances I've ever seen from a high school player down here. I left that game thinking he wasn't the number one player in the country. It was special.
So what you're saying is the James Williams hype, he's not overhyped. He's the real deal, you think?
He's the real deal, man. Like, this is the guy who last year at Western, he really changed that team and he took them to the playoffs and they won a few playoff games. But he didn't have so many of those impact plays, and that was a little disappointing. This year, totally switched around. He's back at Heritage now, and he makes those game-changing plays every play, whether it's, blocking a kick and returning it for a touchdown, interception return for a touchdown, multiple sacks, fumble return for a touchdown, blocked punts. I mean, he's making the game-changing plays every time he steps on the field, like a 5-star is supposed to do.
And that's one thing that I've been telling my chat is, normally there's a lot of times where from junior year to senior year, there's a player, they get a lot of hype going into their senior year. And once the senior year hit, they've been gotten so much hype, the expectations are high, and they don't live up to that. But James Williams is a guy who people are sending me clips, like you said, block punt, block field goal, interception, take it to the house, a big hit. And it's not just like every now and then. It's a weekly thing. It's I can count on it. Every Friday, somebody's going to be sending me some type of clip that's like, look at what he's doing. And so I'm amazed by what he's been able to do. I'm just kind of projecting here. What position do you see him playing at Miami?
A lot of people say striker, and I understand it just looking at his body type, but knowing James, like I've talked to him a few times, he has his heart set on playing safety. He is so determined to keep his body in playing shape to be able to play safety and not get, too much weight on him and have to move down to linebacker. He is so determined to play safety because that's what he wants to play, that I think that enough is going to be enough for him to stick at safety.
What is something that you think James needs to improve on? I mean, we're all in agreement that he's the real deal. He's not overhyped. What do you think going into when as he goes from being a senior to a freshman at Miami, what's some things you'd like to see him improve on?
Man, that's tough. Before the season, it would have been easy. I would have said I want to see him be more physical, but he's been way more physical this season than he was last year. I guess if anything, I'd like to see maybe in man coverage, he could have better hips, I guess. But I mean, that's really nitpicky. I mean, he's a really complete player.
All right. So another player that I get asked about a lot. Have you had a chance? I know you said you haven't seen a lot of the Palmetto guys. Have you had a chance to see ROMELLO Brinson, 4-star wide receiver out of Northwestern?
Yeah, I saw Romello's first game against Miami Central, and I'm going to be out at the game Friday against Heritage too. So that'll be fun. Against Miami Central. I mean, he came out and it was the third play of the season. He got behind the defense for a touchdown, like 70 something yards. He's a really complete receiver too. You know, he was doing it all, going up and getting the ball in the air. He's got really good body control. He's got really good hands. You know, for a big, long guy, you know, he's a threat on screens too. You know, he's got pretty good feet in that regard. He had a big play on a screen. And like he's a little bit of a bully out there. I mean, sometimes on blocks he was throwing guys around. I'm a pretty big ROMELLO Brinson fan.
Give me a guy. Who you've seen that you think, okay, this guy's gotten a lot better since the last time I've seen him.
Let's go with. That's tough. Let me think.
Think about it. Take your time. Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. I appreciate you guys sliding through. Right now, we got Matt from Canes Insight just talking about a little bit of recruiting. I want to give a shout out to Canes for Life. He was the first one in the live stream. So, hey, I appreciate you getting in there. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat. Keep your questions coming. If it's a good question or a super chat question, we'll get it asked. Matt, did you come up with somebody?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Alan Hay, the defensive tackle from Chaminade. This is, you know, he's a very different player than a guy like Leonard Taylor. He doesn't have that same athleticism. But this is a really, really big kid, you know, 300-pounder. But he's got, like, for a guy that big and not very tall, he's got some pretty ridiculous feet. Like, he moves really well. I don't know what other sport he plays, but I imagine he probably has a little bit of a basketball background just by the way he moves his feet. You know, he plays a lot lighter than he actually is. And then with that size, you know, that makes him pretty hard to move. I think that he's a pretty good complement to Leonard Taylor in the middle.
You know, and that's one of the guys, Alan Hay, who doesn't get a lot of people don't talk about him a lot. So I'm glad you gave him a mention. I'm interested to see how he grows. And I feel like he's the defensive tackle that Manny Diaz likes in this defense. So it's going to be interesting to see how he grows. What about Malik Curtis? The reason I want to ask about him is obviously we just got done talking about the cornerback position. So one, have you seen him play? And two, what are your thoughts on him playing the cornerback position?
I haven't seen him play live, but I do think that, you know, unless something changes at the cornerback position, I mean, you might just out of necessity have to put him there. But I think he's a receiver. I think he's too much of a playmaker to have on defense. With what he can do with the ball in his hands, what you see him do on offense in high school, and then on special teams too, returning kicks and returning punts. I mean, the guy flies. He is like a different level of fast. You know, I think it would be a letdown if you weren't able to get other corners and you had to put him there out of necessity.